say something. Lightweight, step it aside when we come in. Feel it in your chest, the syllables get pumping. People on the street get panic and start running. Words on loose leaf sheet, complete coming. I jump on my mind, I summon the rhyme I'm dumping. Hit on the blind, I promise to let the sun in. Sick of the dark ways, we march to the drumming. Jump when they tell us that they want to see jumping. Dad, I want to see some fist pumping. Lift something, take back what's yours. Say something that you know they might attack you for. Cause I'm sick of being treated like I had before. Like a stupid standing for what I'm standing for. Like this war's really just a different brand of war. Like it doesn't cater to rich and a fan.
All right, welcome to Wide Awake Radio. I am Charlie McGrath, your host. It is the 21st of December, Tuesday, the official first day of winter. And I don't know if anybody caught the full moon or the full lunar eclipse last night. I went out till 2 o'clock in the morning, local time, a.m., and recorded it. Every 10 minutes I went out and recorded. I'm going to put that video together because it was kind of cool. Very creepy looking, though. Welcome to the program. Christopher Greene is going to be coming up in just a minute to join me for the hour. And what do we talk about tonight? I mean, there's so much going on right now in this lame duck session, this sprint to the finish line to get as much garbage rammed down our throats as possible, to strip as much liberty as humanly possible in the shortest amount of time. I mean, we could start off by talking about the FCC. We could start off with talking about the Attorney General basically coming out today talking about how the new threat is you. The new threat is the American citizen who can be radicalized, threats that we didn't have 2 years ago, and now we have them. Matter of fact, I'm going to start the show with that. Eric Holder, and maybe I'll play this 4-minute video after the first break. Eric Holder gave an interview today, and in this he said that the threat is real, it's constant, and it's different. And what's different about it? It's Americans now that they got to watch out for. Do you understand what's happening here? The 2001, let's all be afraid of the Muslims living in Saudi Arabia and we're not afraid of them Muslims, even though those are the ones who are on the plane. We're afraid of the ones in Iraq, and we're afraid of the ones in Afghanistan. But now that's playing thin. It's wearing thin on the American psyche because we've been hearing it now longer than any military engagement this country has ever been in. So now we got to switch focus, and we're going to be afraid of American citizens. Our Attorney General said it today. The threat is real, it's consistent, and it's different, and they're the homegrown American terrorists. 50 people arrested in the last 18 months, he claims, that were potential terrorists. Now, only one of these committed a terrorist act. Most of them were lured in by some kind of FBI sting operation where they go out and they take some sub-IQ, some 80 IQ idiot, and they offer him a bunch of money to do something illegal and that sounds like fun. You know, sounds like fun to a moron who hates this country. But they're going to entice him, give him money, and then entrap him, parade him in front of the TV, and pretend that it's a big coup for the war on terror. Billions and billions and billions of dollars being spent to turn this country into a police state. Plain and simple. And you know, the news that came out today couldn't have been more apropos compared for the show that we did last night. We're talking about the intelligentsia, talking about the police state that is created, and the people controlling the police state are the people controlling the information that is disseminated to our leadership on top and to the American public. So now we have our Attorney General, the number one policeman in this country, coming out saying that it's the American people. The American people. This the new Muslim or the American-born cleric al-Awlaki is now the new bin Laden. Bin Laden is no longer terror threat number one. We have to go for an American. We got to turn the guns inwards, in other words. Instead of pointing around the world in sandboxes, we spent billions and billions and trillions of dollars. We're going to point these guns inwardly. And how convenient that we have news stories coming out yesterday about thousands of armed TSA agents flying around in the air marshals. We have 60,000 blue uniform TSA agents, you know, a built-in police force ready to go. We have a big sis going on television saying if you work at Walmart and you see something suspicious, that's the last person I want to trust with my security. The last person on this planet I want eyeballing me to see if I look suspicious is a paper or plastic Walmart employee. Are you kidding me? How do we fall for this crap? Here we are, the last few days before the end of this year, and they're ramming this stuff through, ramming it down our throats. You know, if this country is at such threat because of 19 Saudi Arabians can climb on a plane and it's been a decade holding our country hostage, then we don't deserve to stand. This is insanity, and it's bankrupting us. We're losing blood and treasure hand over fist for a fictitious war on terror. Plain and simple. I'm more afraid of the bureaucrats in D.C. than I am of any terrorist on this planet. I'm going to have a stroke. I'm going to bring on Christopher. Christopher, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Charlie?
I can hear you. I care. Here's the deal. I just watched your video before the show. Great, outstanding video. And you know what? I do care. And maybe that's a problem. And for those of you, I dumped it into the chat room before the show started. But for those of you who haven't caught that video, I'll dump it in again. Christopher Greene, www.greenewave.com is his website. YouTube channel is C Greene 34. If you haven't subscribed to him, do so. Congratulations. I see you're up to 1,300 subscribers. You do a great job over there. This is the actual first time I've been able to have you on the air. You've been scheduled, and then you called in, excuse me, a time or two, but I had you scheduled as a guest last week, and then I went coyote hunting accidentally, and Warren filled in more. So great work over there. I appreciate what you do. Outstanding video today. What is your take, Christopher? I mean, am I out of my mind? Am I too stressed out over this stuff?
Charlie, you're not out of your mind, and nor are the people in this chat room, and I'm not out of my mind, and that's the problem, is we care. We care. I mean, I'm looking at this net neutrality proposal, coming from the FCC today, and, the first thing I think of is, what does net neutrality even mean? I mean, this is just a watered-down proposal to confuse the American public. Now, I mean, they should rename it the, Internet Castration Bill, because that's what it's going to do. I mean, they're coming after freedom. They're coming after the freedom of the Internet. And, what really just pains me to see is that it's obvious, and it's so predictable. You've got millions and millions of pissed-off Americans that know that they were robbed, in the 2008 stock market debacle. And, you've got a lot of people that are just very unhappy. I mean, they're looking at their bank accounts, they're looking at their brokerage statements, and they've got half of what they used to have. And, it's just, you're not nuts, Charlie, and, something needs to be done about it.
No, I agree 100%. Matter of fact, I'm reading the FCC net neutrality, some of the comments that came out of the 5-member board. And before I go any further, I keep forgetting to do this at the top of the show. You can follow the show on Facebook, www.facebook.com/wideawakenews. Bonnie is doing a great job at keeping that thing updated with who our guests are for the day and posting my videos up there. So, I need to mention it more because she works hard on it. Also, if you're listening and you're not in the chat room, there's a bunch of people, and it looks like we have over 130 people in there. Head on over to wideawakenews.com and jump into the chat. One other thing. The archives. I've received no less than 50 emails today and messages. Yesterday's archive, the 20th, if you click on it, you're going to get Friday's show, the 17th. We are getting that fixed, so I apologize for any inconvenience. Warren's appearance yesterday will be fixed, hopefully, by tonight. Okay, sorry, Christopher. Back to the FCC. I had a quote. I was reading a quote here while you were talking about it, and this is from Chairman Julius Caesar. No, it's not. Julius Genachowski, who is one of the Democrats in the majority supporting the compromise proposal. He goes on to say, as we stand here now listen to this. This is maddening. This is what they've done to our entire a free market capitalist system. This is what they've done to liberty in this country. This next statement you could apply to any facet of the economy, any facet of our life right now. You could attach this statement to it, and this is how these people think. As we stand here now, the freedom and openness of the Internet is unprotected. No rules on the books to protect basic Internet values, Genachowski says. No process for monitoring Internet openness as technology and business models evolve. No resource for innovators, consumers, or speakers harmed by improper practices. And no predictability for the Internet service providers so they can manage and invest in broadcast network. This is nothing more than the corporatocracy at work. They're going to take something that is absolutely not broken. When is the last time you heard anybody complain about the Internet, Christopher?
Never, and that's the question to ask. That's the big question, Charlie. I mean, what's wrong with the Internet as it is today? Nothing. Nothing's wrong with it at all. So, all that this is, all that the net neutrality proposal is, it's just a watered-down proposal to go in and regulate the Internet because, they can't control how information is being distributed in this, what I would call a truth forum. Everything that you're seeing in YouTube and with
hold on a sec, Christopher.
Sure.
Hold on one sec. I'm sorry. I'm going to get cut off by the computer here. We'll be right back with Christopher Greene on Wide Awake Radio right after this. All right, welcome back. Oh, the calming music of the intro. Welcome back to Wide Awake Radio. Christopher Greene is our guest for the hour tonight, and I rudely interrupted him to go to that break. So, Christopher, please continue. We were talking about net neutrality, the 5-panel FCC board that voted 3-2 in favor of moving forward with regulating something that isn't broke. Sure. And, yeah, it's just, Charlie, it's obvious. I mean, again, nothing's wrong with the Internet. I mean, this is just an excuse to go in and regulate how you receive your information. And, the federal government is very scared. They're terrified by the fact that there are thousands and thousands of people now receiving their daily news from the Internet, from alternative media stations like the ones that we run. And, you know this too, but you look at the data, I mean, more people are on YouTube on a daily basis than watch the Super Bowl. I mean, so that's the kind of traffic that's, coming on the Internet, and they can't control the mainstream distribution channels anymore. So, when you read these articles and you're reading about the FCC approving this controversial net neutrality proposal, again, this is just a watered-down proposal to, skate it in under the nose of our citizenry, and then they're just going to add more and more bills and rules to it until they basically control, just like they do now with mainstream television, everything that you see, everything that you read. I posted a video a few days ago on a 1950s CIA operative where the CIA basically allegedly controlled a great deal of the mainstream outlets in this country. It's called Operation Mockingbird. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, this is real. This is, we've been talking about this for a year on our channels, that this was going to be the next step. They create all this fear, Charlie. They fearmonger the American people. They fearmongered them with the stock market crash. They fearmonger them into the bailouts. They don't give anybody a choice. They just spend our children's future, and they leave us with the bag. So it's infuriating, and it's frustrating, and what's frustrating is most of us realize that we're kind of reaching this climax. We're at the precipice of something big in this country. We're at the precipice of something big for 2011, and they're just going to skate all these censorship rules under our nose as we move into the holidays. Absolutely. I could not agree with that more. That's, that is the modus operandi and has been for 100 years. 1913, December 23rd, is when the Federal Reserve came into existence in another session that was about to head into the holiday weekend. This isn't surprising at all. What is surprising is that the same tactics work over and over and over again. And I think you nailed it when you said what the fear is. It isn't that they're doing the same game plan. It is that we live in a culture that has the ability, unlike any culture in the past, or any time in the past, to communicate. And that's why you do see mainstream media, over 50% of the people in the country no longer feel that it is trustworthy, and more people are turning to alternative media, be it YouTube, be it Facebook, be it whatever. They're not getting their news from the ABC Alphabet channels. So, so you do see a ratcheting down by the FCC, and I think it's more
number one, it's these people think they need control over every aspect of our economy. And trust me, as you well know, the Internet is a huge part of our economy. And just like the rest of it, when they get in there and control it, what has happened? Has it gotten better? I mean, has our stock market, has our entire economy gotten better since the Federal Reserve has been responsible for monetary policy and employment in this country? I mean, here we are. We have more people in the food lines now than we did during the Great Depression. We have more people unemployed by the U6 number. We have the same type numbers of the Great Depression. So once they get a hold of the Internet and they can filter, it isn't much as filtering as it is give the bandwidth and give the power to the people who are willing to pay them the most. Just like 2,500 lobbyists go to bat every single day for the financial services industry, so we're going to have these lobbyists, and that, in my opinion, is who is pressing for this net neutrality. It's going to be controlled, and guys like you and me, I don't know how much longer we have, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, from what I read, I mean, this is looking to go into effect early next year. So, I mean, that begs the question. I don't know how much longer we have. I mean, freedom of speech, I guess we just have a couple more months left, Charlie. I mean, it really is amazing. And you know, I was watching this video that you mentioned earlier on in the show, as you started the show, with General Eric Holder. And, I mean, this just infuriated me. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it really got my goat. They're asking the American people to turn on each other now, you know, to report suspicious activity. Like you mentioned, you know, you go to a Walmart and, you know, you're supposed to, you know, report suspicious activity. I mean, you got to ask the deeper question. I mean, why is this happening? I mean, why are they telling the American people to now turn on each other? I mean, there's a deeper cause to it, and the cause is people are angry. And then you ask the question after that, why are people angry? Why are people speaking out? And, you know, I think we probably answer that question with all the videos and all the shows that you do, but, you know, it's really scary. And I picked up an article, I don't know if you read it, but it was titled Monitoring America. And it was printed by the Washington Post, written by Dana Priest and William Arkin. But it was just talking about, you know, these net neutrality rules and basically how, you know, the average American freedoms that we've enjoyed in this country, I mean, they're going away. And, you know, I still feel that we're on something, you know, the precipice of something big. I mean, we've got tensions overseas with North and South Korea. We've got, you know, the Julian Assange WikiLeaks story. There's an argument behind that. I mean, is that real? Is that fiction? I mean, honestly, I don't know. All I know is that it's extremely convenient that all of these string of events are being used and propagated by the federal government to supposedly protect you and protect me, but they're going to do it by taking away all of our God-given freedoms.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And you could not have timed that better, because as soon as you finished and almost ran out of breath, the music started. So this is perfect. Okay, after the break, I'm going to play a little bit of Attorney General Holder's indictment of the American people today. And we're going to take your calls, 877-342-6673. If you have questions for myself or for Christopher, you can call in, and we'll take them on the air. And I'm also going to pull some out of the chat room. So we'll be right back with Christopher Greene on Wide Awake Radio right after this. All right, welcome back to Wide Awake Radio. I'm your host, Charlie McGrath. I wrote down a few things out of the chat room. Everybody wants me not to take the third break, so I won't. So if you're interested in calling in and speak and ask a question or have a comment for myself or Christopher, 877-342-6673. We won't do that third break, so we'll have plenty of time to get into discussions. Christopher, if you don't mind, I'm going to play just a few minutes of this Holder interview today. I rarely do this, but I think it's worth listening to.
Okay.
Has also been the top priority of officials in the United States. So we want to bring in our senior justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, who just sat down for an exclusive interview with Attorney General Eric Holder. And Pierre, the Attorney General is a pretty circumspect man, but on this subject, he doesn't seem to be pulling any punches.
George, I've known and covered the Attorney General more than a decade, and I can tell you he was remarkably candid and quite blunt about the relentless nature of the terror threat the U.S. is combating. What keeps you up at night?
The concern that perhaps that we might have missed something. The threat is real. The threat is different. The threat is constant.
In a rare interview, the Attorney General laid out the most pressing terror threats. Dangers, he said, that are more diverse and increasing. Among them, the new rapidly evolving threat posed by homegrown radicals.
The threat has changed from simply worrying about foreigners coming here to worrying about people in the United States, American citizens, raised here, born here. You didn't worry about this even 2 years ago.
In the last 18 months, at least 50 Americans have been charged with planning acts of terrorism. And Holder, in a sober assessment, said an American member of al-Qaeda, radical cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, may now be as grave a threat as Osama bin Laden himself. Awlaki, Holder says, is a clear and present danger.
He's an extremely dangerous man. He has shown a desire to harm the United States, a desire to strike the homeland of the United States.
The U.S. suspects Awlaki, who is believed to be hiding in Yemen, helped mastermind the Christmas underwear bomb plot and a recent scheme to blow up cargo planes.
He is a person who, an American citizen, familiar with this country, and he brings a dimension because of that American familiarity that others do not.
And where would you rank him, or can you rank him?
He would be on the same list with bin Laden. He's up there. I don't know whether he's 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know, but he's certainly on the list of the people who worry me the most.
Does the U.S. have a preference in terms of Awlaki? Dead, captured, or prosecuted?
Well, we certainly want to neutralize him, and we will do whatever we can in order to do that.
Awlaki also allegedly encouraged the Fort Hood gunman and at least 12 suspected homegrown radicals charged with attempted acts of terror. His teachings and writings have been discovered on their computers.
One of the things that struck me is that how many of these people have been radicalized online?
The ability to go into your basement, turn on your computer, find a site that has this kind of hatred spewed. They have an ability to take somebody who is perhaps just interested, perhaps just on the edge, and take them over to the other side.
To cope, the U.S. is monitoring scores of radicals and a set of stings to combat the homegrown threat. But the increasing number of stings is not without controversy.
You know, the critics say that the stings that the FBI has been doing basically amount to entrapment.
We're going to do whatever it is that we have to do in order to protect the American people. Options are always given all along the way for them to say, you know what, I've changed my mind. I don't want to.
All right, I can't take any more. I mean, basically everything, Christopher, that we talked about. You know, what's striking there is this kind of energy, this kind of a force is put behind this effort to convince everybody that this threat is the number one thing that we need to, when we tuck our kids in at night, we need to think, thank God the government's there protecting us from these terror-loving terrorists. And the video I put out last night, someone pointed out quite accurately the number of people who die from bee stings a year outranks the number of people who are killed by terrorists a year. And in fact, I tried to do a search over the last decade, and I came up just tallying different sources with about 20,000 people over the last decade. And we sit in a country where nearly 200,000 people die because of lung cancer every year. So now, because of this, because of the ridiculous nature of this threat, at least if somebody who's awake, I find it almost staggering that we believe when our Attorney General comes on and says we have to commit this kind of effort, and he hits all the key phrases, Christopher. Guys going on their computer in the basement, like everybody who's in alternative media or anybody who gets on the Internet is sitting there in their underwear in their grandmother's basement spewing hate. The fact of the matter is, this is the future. Alternative media is being successful because people are tired of getting the watered down lies of not only the government but the corporate-owned media.
Yeah, Charlie, you're right. I mean, the people are demanding the truth. I mean, one of the the big things that I took from that video, what just kind of astounded me is, when they asked him, did they want this Anwar Awlaki character, dead or alive? He says, well, they want to neutralize him. What does that mean? Kill? I mean, it kind of sounds like what they want to do to the American people. And, I don't know.
Well, you nailed it. He's an American. You nailed it. He's an American who said something hateful. And trust me, I'm not condoning his actions, but I'm saying he's incited. This is the word that's gonna. Somebody in the chat room said, I'm gonna get onto my computer one day and see that my YouTube account's been closed down, find out that my bank accounts have been emptied, and then I'm gonna get somebody pounding on the door and a black rubber bag over my head. I mean, these are the words these will be the words used in order to facilitate that. When they start talking about, I'm saying things that are inciting violence, or I'm trying to radicalize people to be anti-government. But, the idea that he actually took a gun and went to Fort Hood is preposterous. He wasn't even in the country. But we're going to try him. We're going to send a $70,000 Hellfire missile, if we possibly can, to his current location and neutralize him.
Yeah, and I don't know if the viewers have much of a background on Anwar al-Awlaki, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but I pulled this from Zero Hedge. From what they're telling us, he's a radical spiritual leader linked to several 9/11 attacks, the Fort Hood shooting, and the attempted Christmas Day bombing of an airliner. But what I really found to be unbelievable, and this has to be verified, but you can pull this article at zerohedge.com, was that this character was a guest at the Pentagon in the months after 9/11. A Pentagon official confirmed to CBS News, and there's links provided that supposedly confirm that. So, I mean, it just makes you wonder, too, what is behind all this? So.
No, I agree. Are you in the? Can you field a few phone calls?
Absolutely.
All right, we got. It looks like we got Task Force 151. I don't know your first name, so I'm going to call you Task. Welcome, Task.
Hey guys, how you doing? Both big fans of yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the call. Yep, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
You betcha. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I'm in my patrol car right now. Hey, just wondering what you think about...
Wait a minute. You're not coming for me, are you?
That's a negative. I'm one of the big guys.
All right, good deal.
Just wondering what you thought about, what the Mint said today. About, definitely thinking about the overreach of the FCC and basically how it was completely unconstitutional to do what they did. It has to be ratified by both the House and the Senate. So,
are you talking about the net neutrality?
Yeah, right now I'm talking about net neutrality, and then I'll have a follow-up question.
Okay, well, you know what, Christopher, do you have a thought on that? I mean, I know it's a 5-member panel that makes up the FCC, and they vote one way or the other. I don't think this is. I think it has to go through the Senate and the House, and then the FCC is kind of like the EPA. They implement the legislation.
Yeah, that's what I understand so far. So basically, at this point, it's just a proposal. Nothing's been passed. But from what I understand, it could be passed as early as this coming year. So the first couple of months of the year, we could be looking at some kind of passage of some kind of new bill. Basically aimed at controlling the content providers, YouTube, Facebook, Netflix, any of the content providers that are using the networks of, let's say, the Comcasts or the Verizons of the world, they're going to regulate that. So what that basically means is the federal government can go in and regulate those content providers. Well, they can basically decide for themselves what's in the public's best interest and what they'll allow you to view, hear, listen to, read. It's pure censorship of the internet is what it is.
I agree.
Yeah, all they need to do is get their foot in the door.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And you're right as far as unconstitutional. That goes without saying. Everything that Christopher and I have been talking about for the last couple of years, you could say, is unconstitutional, and have a ground to stand on, because you can go right to the Constitution and find where they've violated the principle, not only the principle, the actual word of the Constitution. So that isn't a surprise at all. That's old hat. That doesn't even get people to lift their eyebrow anymore, the shredding of the Constitution.
Yeah, right. It's almost like it happens almost every day now. It's nothing new.
You're correct.
And one more question about Holder. Just this guy's trying to go after people on the internet. What about Malik Shabazz, all these Black Panther guys that he just completely disregarded about, threatening people outside of, Philadelphia voting places. Comical.
Well, I mean, you could say, I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but I can tell you this: I would be willing to bet you, and you're a police officer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'd be willing to bet you that there's more gang-related deaths in this country every year than there is any kind of terror-related deaths. We could probably say that there was more gang-related deaths in the last decade than in the last 100 years of terrorism.
Oh yeah, even domestic violence. You can name it. There's so many more things that are more than terrorism.
Yeah. Well, and so, but why aren't they focusing on that? Like I said, why aren't we focusing on the bees? More people are dying of bee stings. But we don't have a war on bees.
Right, you're right. Because we need a boogeyman, Charlie. You know that. We need a boogeyman.
Absolutely. It's generate the fear. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. You're helpful.
You bet. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate you holding.
No problem. Be good, guys.
You too. Christopher, all right, so we have the Attorney General coming out today talking about net neutrality. What else do we have? What else are we looking at being rammed through in this lame duck session? We've not even, what are we looking at here? We got about 12 minutes left. We've not even broached the subject of the Patriot Act for the food industry. Are you up to speed on this?
Somewhat. I'm probably not up to speed as much as you are on the subject, Charlie, but yeah, if you'd want to maybe share with the viewers and myself, I want you to get into it.
Well, I mean, in a nutshell, we had Senate Bill 510 that was going to be shelved until the new wave election Tea Party candidates came in, and I say that tongue-in-cheek because I don't believe that the Tea Party exists anymore. But it was brought up again and passed by the Senate, and now it's heading back to the House. It's basically is going to give the FDA all kinds of new regulatory power to go in and handle business when it comes to organic farmers, when it comes to small mom-and-pop operations or small local farms. And it's going to obviously benefit, just like the net neutrality is obviously going to benefit the big corporations that have the money to get the boots on the ground in D.C. This bill is going to benefit the big agribiz because it's going to be able to push out mom and pop with new steeped on regulation. And I don't know where it sits right now. I think it's at the House. It's probably going to get voted on in the next 24 hours. But we're not going to hear anything about it. Even on C-SPAN, all you get is the new treaty with the Soviets, with Russia, the new nuclear, what is it, START 2 treaty.
Yeah. Well, I find it, what I find interesting too, Charles, you see how all this news that we're even talking about right now is really just kind of distracting us from, again, the root cause and the root evil, which has been these horrific bailouts that we've just had. I mean, you ask, what do I see in 2011? What do I see in the future? Well, I can count on 110% more bailouts in this country. I mean, it hasn't ended with QE2. I joke on my channel all the time. It's QE infinity now. We're going to have QE 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, basically until the country self-implodes on itself. And, some of the viewers are probably aware, you're probably aware of this, Charlie, but the federal government is now the largest owner and holder of U.S. Treasury debt, outpacing China. We own $1 trillion of U.S. debt because guess what? Nobody else wants to buy it. So we're the buyer of last resort. And, wouldn't surprise me to learn that the federal government's buying S&P future contracts to prop up the stock market and basically every other asset class that exists. I mean, that's not even to get into mortgage-backed securities, Fannie and Freddie Mac. You've got housing in this country that's still crumbling before our eyes. I mean, I don't know if you saw the report with the Case-Shiller Index last week, but Mr. Shiller himself sees residential real estate prices dropping another 20% in 2011. So, I mean, that puts us at a 50% trough from the peak of 2006.
Boy, and there's a lot of people that think that isn't even going to be the bottom. They think that we could see an 80% correction from the top in housing. Now, I mean, I've been in the building industry for 20 years. And obviously I've never seen anything like this. I mean, it's coast to coast, border to border, a retreat in. I mean, it used to be Christopher, I'd get anecdotal stories from people in the industry throughout the country about pockets that were heavily overbuilt and prices were declining. Now it's exactly the opposite. I get very minimal anecdotal evidence of prices stabilizing in very, very niche markets. I mean, we're talking the big skies here in Montana, where most of the members are, or most of the people who can afford the $20 million mandatory estates are either corporate heads or senators or long-term congressmen, or places like Vail. I mean, some of these destination areas are seeing some stabilization, I guess, because why wouldn't they? $144 billion on Wall Street, that makes for pretty good mortgage payments. But overall, nationally, you know, in my area in the Northwest here, we had a very, very severe winter. And, you know, most of the building industry, it certainly isn't surviving on new construction. It's surviving on being fortunate enough to live in an area that got pounded by softball-sized hail and its insurance money. And where does this money come from? In a lot of ways, these insurance-backed claims are paid for by the government. But it's just a matter of eventually it's going to run out, and the realization is we can't do another $8,000 tax credit. We can't paper it over it any longer. And we get labeled as doom and gloomers because we point out these facts. But I don't think it's as much doom and gloom as it is let's get ready for some reality that's about to smack us in the face.
Yeah, Charlie, it's just reality. I mean, I can tell you offhand that, you know, locally here in Arizona, I mean, we just got massacred out here. I mean, prices have already declined 50% from the trough. So we will decline 70, 80% at the end of the day if we see another 20% or greater decline from where we're at now. And so nobody's focusing at the root cause of the problem. I mean, they told us it was all these mortgage-backed securities and toxic assets. You know, that was the reason for the downfall of Wall Street, and it was the impetus and the reason for the bailouts. Well, none of that's been fixed. I mean, many Americans aren't even paying their mortgage right now, but you know what CNBC is reporting? We've got a bump in retail sales. Well, you know why we've got a bump in retail sales? Because people aren't paying their mortgage. So, I mean, that's
exactly
the multi-trillion-dollar problem, Charlie. We shouldn't be focusing on, you know, the new Xbox they bought for their kid.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And, in fact, the reason initially, and it was latched onto for quite some time, and it still rears its ugly head once in a while, but the reason that we're in a depression isn't because of anything Wall Street did. It's because of all these people who went out and got loans they knew they couldn't afford. You know, that to me is the most disgusting argument that ever came out since the 2008 bailout phenomenon began, because in reality, $9 trillion was the total mortgage debt in this country as of September 2008. That number is smaller now, but even then, at the high point of $9 trillion, you know, how many times could we have paid off every mortgage in this country? In fact, I've added up the numbers, and some of the more liberal estimates that are out there as far as what the bailouts have cost us are north of $30 trillion. That encompasses every residential mortgage in this country, not the defaulting ones, not the ones that are, you know, in danger of going into default. These are every single residential mortgage, every single student loan, every single credit card, every single auto loan. I mean, you're talking we've committed enough money to bail out the people who just got $144 billion in bonuses to basically declare jubilee across the board in this country. But yet we still have pundits like Kramer and others, talking heads in the business media, going out there trying to divert and blame. We're going to blame our economic problems on immigrants coming into the country. We're going to blame our problems on people who got loans, even though some guy in a suit had to sit across from them and say, well, yeah, okay, you qualify.
Yeah, you know, right on. I mean, I don't know if you saw this today, but, you know, what's next? The states are broke. You know, Meredith Whitney of Whitney Advisors, and she kind of rose to fame because she called the banking crisis and, you know, basically forecasted the crash before it happened. But she came out today and said that basically we're going to have over 100 municipalities next year in 2011 fail and go bust, go completely broke. It's going to be another $1 trillion problem on the hands of the federal government. So, I mean, what can they do? I mean, it's very simple. The bottom line is the government's broke. We're spending too much money. You can't debt yourself out of debt. I mean, a 10-year-old can understand that's a fruitless enterprise. And, we're not doing anything to address the problem. We're not encouraging savings in this country. We're discouraging it with low interest rates so the banksters can go off and, pay themselves record bonuses and, rake in record profits. And, I think that the powers that be, they obviously see the writing on the wall. So in my opinion, they're just milking the country dry right before the inevitable big change comes through. And, that's kind of where I think we are now, is that, the American people have woken up. People all across the world are awake to what's happening. I mean, how many times do you have to get smacked upside the head before you realize you're going to continue to get smacked in the face unless something changes? And, that's where we're at right now. We've got our politicians lying to us. We had Ben Bernanke on 60 Minutes a few weeks ago lying to our faces, saying that he could control inflation. He said he was 100% certain that he could control inflation. It's a lie. Interest rates are going to go up. The federal government is basically operating on a 0% interest-only mortgage right now. And what's going to happen when interest rates rise? The same thing that happened in 2008 when the whole housing market went bust. The country's going to go bust. It ends in a sovereign default. That's why we're seeing riots all over the world. And, it's coming to the United States. I hate to say that. I don't want to be a doom and gloomer. I don't think any of this is fun. It's scary, but it's reality. And, unless we do something to fix the problem, that's where we're headed.
I agree. I couldn't agree more, actually. Matter of fact, I've been beating that drum for the last couple of months, especially starting when we saw austerity measures implemented in Greece. We've seen people riot there. That has not stopped since early spring of last year. I know it loses favor in the pop culture media, but even as of last week, there's people out there throwing Molotov cocktails because they're upset about austerity measures. We see it in the UK. We see it in Ireland. We see it in France. I mean, and these things are only going to get continually worse. And it's going to even be worse here in the United States, I think, because there is so many people who are so distracted. We are so trained to have this gnat-length attention span that we forget. We forget about 2008. That's ancient history to most people. We forget about the fact that we've been robbed blind by Wall Street, and we are conditioned to believe that as soon as they're healthy, that will all trickle down. And there's just nowhere. I agree with you. Where's it going to trickle down from? What industry is going? What bubble are we going to create? I guess what we're trying to do now in this country is create the fear bubble. I mean, when I see things like Holder come out talking about, it's going to come from within, the next big attack, or when I see Big Sis talking about the Walmart program, when I see 60,000 people in blue uniforms at the airports, when I hear of thousands of armed agents on airplanes flying around the country and the world, I mean, that is the new economy. It's the police state fear-based economy. And, how long can that go on? It doesn't produce anything. We print money out of thin air. At some point, I think you're right. Sovereign debt default equals pain across the board. The problem is, we have 100-plus people in the room right now that get it. Maybe we have 1,000 people listening that get it. But the vast majority of the newly released 308 million number of Americans living here, they're not going to know what hit them.
Yeah, I don't think they do, Charlie. And that's all that's happened is we've had a massive redistribution of wealth in this country. $15 trillion in 2008. You now have the top 1% in this country controlling 95% of the wealth. You've completely destroyed and eroded the middle class. And if we had systemic risk before, the big banks, the top biggest banks in this country had about 40% of all consumer deposits prior to the bailouts of 2008. They now hold about 60 to 70%. So if we had systemic risk then, if there is a big event on the horizon, well, it's gotten worse, not better.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, these companies are more systemic. The too big to fail are even bigger than they were in the last crash, and we're more reliant. We're totally reliant now on the government backing this economy. And, the trend, like you said earlier on, it isn't that we had this collapse, we're going to perp walk a bunch of people that brought us here, we're going to watch them in orange jumpsuits go across the television and then expose their crimes for what they are. We're just going to cover it up and give them even more and let them run roughshod.
Yeah, and the question I know we get, I know we're running out of time, but, you know, again and again, I know you get this question. I get this question every single day. Well, what can I do? You know, what can I do? And I think it's really simple. Just the simple truth is just change your habits. Change your habits. Stop endorsing these banks. You know, stop doing business with companies that you don't like. Stop watching the mainstream news if you don't like what they're you know, telling you. So,
Christopher, great advice. I'm sorry we got a short music break there coming in. So, Christopher Greene, get over and see his YouTube channel. Christopher, I'm going to put your latest video up on wideawakenews.com under commentary. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime. Stay tuned. Jeff Rentz is coming up next.